Hello and welcome to this Dr. Frost Maths key skill video on solving an inequality with one step. Now in previous videos we saw what inequalities were. So for example, if we wrote x is greater than 3, that symbol there just means greater than. And that's basically saying that x can be any value that's greater than 3. So for example, x could be 4, because 4 is a bigger number than 3, it's greater than 3. X could be 5. 5 is greater than 3. You could even have decimals. So, for example, 4.1 is greater than 3. It's a bigger number than 3. So we could have 4.1. And you can see that these numbers go on forever. We could list infinitely many different numbers which are greater than 3. We could have a billion, for example. A billion is greater than 3. Now, when we solve inequalities, we actually solve them in almost an identical way to how we solve equations. So for example, with equations, remember we had this idea of balancing equations. If you add 3 to one side of an equation, you have to add 3 to the other side of the equation. If you times one side of the equation by 2, you have to times the other side of the equation by 2. Now there is one exception when it comes to like timesing or dividing by negative numbers, but we're not going to cover that in this video. So for the moment, you can just think of solving inequalities like this as exactly the same as solving equations. So I've got 2x is greater than 8. Now we know that solving an equation means to get x on its own, to work out the value of x. And the same occurs here. We want to get x on its own to solve the inequality. But whatever that symbol is there, you need to keep it as greater than. Don't suddenly turn that into an equals. So on that x, we've got that 2 in front of it. X is being multiplied by 2. And remember, we undo the last thing done to x to get rid of that thing. So if x is being multiplied by 2, we want to get rid of that times by 2. The opposite of timesing by 2 is dividing by 2. So we divide both sides of the inequality by 2. Now dividing by 2 will cancel out that times by 2, just leaving x. We've still got that greater than symbol, so don't change that symbol in the middle. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. And now we've solved that inequality because we've got x on its own. X is any value that's greater than 4. What about b? X plus 5 is less than or equal to, that's what that symbol means, less than or equal to 11. Again, we want to get x on its own, so let's think what's happening to x. We're adding 5 to it. Now we want to undo the last thing done to x. The way we undo plus 5 is to subtract 5 from both sides of the inequality. So let's do that. On the left-hand side, when we subtract 5, that gets rid of the plus 5, leaving just x. We leave that symbol as it is. And on the right-hand side, 11 minus 5 is 6. And now we're done because x is on its own, on one side of the inequality. So the solution here is that x can be any value that's less or equal to 6. So it could be 4, it could be 0, it could be lots of different values. And the final one, we've got minus 2 is greater or equal to y minus 8. Again, we want to get y on its own. Now, let's see what's happening to y. We're subtracting 8. We want to get rid of the minus 8, so we're just left with y. The opposite of subtracting 8 is to add 8, so we add 8 to both sides of the equation. Now, minus 2 plus 8 is equal to 6, greater than or equal to, and on the right-hand side, the plus 8 gets rid of the minus 8, and we're left with y. And that is the final answer. Now you might think this is a bit different because in the previous ones we had x on the left, whereas here the y is on the right of the inequality. And if you wanted to, we could put that the other way around. This is saying that 6 is greater or equal to y. Another way of saying that is y is less than or equal to 6. So if we wanted, we could say y is less than or equal to 6. So we kind of almost like reflected this. And that is a slightly nicer way of saying this inequality. We prefer to have the variable on the left-hand side of the equation or the inequality. So that is a slightly better answer.